small, nice, very tall and narrow cylinder. And then squeezing at the bottom and gently guiding up. It's okay if it wobbles. Just keep going. Just be very gentle with it. Welcome back to Sabertooth Pottery. If you've gotten this far, that means you've watched all the beginning tutorials and you're now ready to move on to the intermediate tutorials. If this is your first time watching my channel, then welcome. What we usually do here is we do tutorials on how to work with clay. And in today's specific video, we're going to be talking about throwing taller cylinders. So if you want to start from the beginning, go ahead and click right here. That'll take you to the beginning tutorial playlist. If you want to just watch just for the sake of seeing some awesome and hypnotizing pottery throwing, then stay right here. So if you are interested in more pottery throwing tutorials, go ahead and click like and subscribe. So let's talk about taller cylinders. So in the beginning tutorial for cylinder, we just made your basic 6-inch cylinder. If you couldn't get it that high, that's fine. I couldn't. My first entire semester could not make a single 6-inch cylinder. Hopefully by now you've had a lot of practice on how to throw cylinders, so you might be ready to move on to throwing something taller. For that, you're going to need more clay than you would for a shorter cylinder and just a steady hand. So you might ask, what is the purpose of throwing a cylinder? Generally, we don't use the cylinder for anything. All the cylinders I made from my beginning class, I used to just like store brushes and stuff in my tools. That's what I use them for. However, it's really important to learn how to throw a cylinder, because in order to make pretty much anything, you need to throw a cylinder. The reason why I'm making this specific video on how to throw taller cylinders is because in the next couple of videos, we're going to be making bigger pieces where you're going to be able to need to know how to throw a bigger cylinder. If you're ready, I'm going to skip going over tools because by now you should know what you need or already have everything you need in your studio. So let's get straight to it and make our really tall cylinder. Ready? Here we go. Okay, once you got your clay centered, go ahead and start opening up your clay. This is going to be a lot harder than doing a small amount of clay, if you haven't already noticed. It's a lot harder on your hands. So, because the cylinder is much larger, we have a much larger amount of clay, compressing the bottom's a little bit harder for me. Like I've mentioned several times, I have weaker wrists, so I use the flat bottom of my rib tool to compress the bottom there. So you can do that, or you can use your fingers if that's easier for you. I'm gonna see how much I have on the bottom here. I probably have plenty. Oh yes. Then start bringing up your cylinder. Okay, so we're gonna start making a really tall cylinder, but I also want it to be really narrow, because at this point we can bring it up more, but the wall's gonna start getting too thin, and it'll only get about this high, and because it's so wide. So to make it taller, what I'm gonna teach you is how to get the mouth, the opening of your cylinder, smaller. So what I do is I get my hands nice and wet, and then I take my hands like this, and I use this part of my hands and I push right here. And you can use your fingers to kind of guide the other side of the clay. And that's going to close up your clay a bit more, make it more narrow. You can see that there's a curve right here. And then I take my thumb and middle fingers and push up gently. And that's going to bring it up. And then as you see, it starts flaring out again. So that's when you're going to want to push in. Because as you're pulling up, it's going to want to flare out. And that's why we push in at the top. Otherwise, it would completely flare out. Okay, so from here we can keep pulling because we still have enough clay that we can keep pulling. I'm going to leave the top a little bit thicker so it doesn't wobble on me as I'm pulling up the bottom. So for this part, as your cylinder starts getting taller, you're going to want to make sure that your whole arm's wet enough to get in there and pull. And if it's too hard for you to do this sitting, you can always stand up, which I'm going to show you. You just stand up, that way you're straight above it, and then you can pull up. And then once you get to the top, I like to do this with my middle and thumb finger on my left hand and just pull up the rest of the way. I'm gonna get some of that extra water out of the bottom there. Okay. So this is a pretty tall cylinder. This is definitely higher than 6 inches. In order to get a cylinder that is higher than 6 inches, you're gonna want at least a couple pounds, like 2 pounds. For throwing a small cylinder, like a mug or something, 1 pound should be enough. I didn't weigh this, I just got a big chunk. And yeah, this is about like 6 inches right here, so we're looking at kind of like 9 inches right now, maybe 10. And you know, if you're comfortable there and you don't want to keep pulling up anymore, you can stop. Otherwise, you can keep going, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep going a little bit more. So pinching at the top, on a nice, very tall and narrow cylinder. And then squeezing at the bottom and gently guiding up. It's okay if it wobbles. Just keep going. Just be very gentle with it. You can keep doing that if you wish. And about right here is where the wall here is level with my foot. So I have all this extra clay at the bottom, which I can either trim off after I take it off the wheel, or I can take some of it off now, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my flat edge rib tool, and I'm just going to cut right in like that until it touches the wall gently, and I'm just going to scrape that off. I don't have all that extra clay. And you can either recycle that or set it aside and wedge it later so you can use it again. I'm just going to recycle it because I have so much clay. So make sure your wall has a fairly even thickness. That you didn't take too much off the bottom. See if you need to take off more. So my bottom's definitely got some thickness there, so I can take that off when I go to trim it. It's not too thin, not too thick. And I'm just going to straighten this out here. And then let's just go in, clean up the inside. Stick your hand in there and turn the wheel on and clean it up. Right about here is where it gets thinner, so I'm just gonna instead of having my outside hand lower than my inside hand, I'm going to have them at the same place. If you have them at the same place when you're doing this, it's just going to keep the wall nice and straight without actually pulling any more up so it doesn't get too thin. So this is about 12 inches right here, and this is a good spot to be. So I'm just going to straighten everything up and clean it up, and we're done. The inside nice and clean. Clean up the outside. It's not too wet. I'm going to level my top here a little bit. Okay, now this is where I'm going to take, since we're not exactly even, this is where I'm going to take my flat-bottomed rib tool, and I'm just going to guide it up with my hand on the inside so we get a nice flat wall. The finger's going to push against the inside wall of the clay and guide it up against this line here. Here we are. So here you have your beautiful 12-inch cylinder, and from here you can do a lot of other things with the tall cylinder. But if you just want to keep your nice tall cylinder like this and use it for, I don't know, keeping your really long brushes or using it as a decorative piece or a vase, you can definitely do that. So we're done. So how do you feel after making that tall cylinder? Did you get your 12 inches? Is it kind of like looking like 8 inches? Did it completely fail on you? That's okay if it did. Most of my cylinders failed, and I just kept doing it until I finally understood how to do it. A lot of the times when I'm pulling up, I find that it gets really wobbly, and that's okay too. It's you know, you're just starting out, you're gonna have some uneven walls. I still do it all the time because sometimes I'll pull up too fast when my wheel isn't spinning fast enough, and that will result in kind of like this like wobbly spiral going up your piece. That's normal. You can correct that, or you can just start over if you aren't happy with it. Usually, just for the sake of having the video, I'll just go ahead and leave it as is, and if it does happen, I like to try to talk about it and try to show you how you can kind of fix that. So now that you have made a tall cylinder, or if you haven't, you can go back and watch the video again and keep doing it until you feel confident enough. So if you already got your 12-inch cylinder, we can go ahead and move on to the next video. So in our next video, we're gonna actually make a vase. You excited? I am. I'll see you there. Bye. And action. 1 second, I gotta make a correction here. In our next video, we're gonna be making. What are we making? In our next video, we're gonna be making vases. That's kind of weird. So in our next video, we're gonna make a vase. Sounds weird. In our next video, we're gonna make. My nose is itchy.